Hi, this is Nathan with Ignition Deck, and in this video we are going to install WordPress to a local host environment. In this case I'm using the MAMP tool for Mac, but you can also use XAMPP for Windows, or you can use FTP plus your web host to install WordPress online. In this case I'm already logged into my PHPMyAdmin, where I'm going to create a new database table for the WordPress installation. Note that if you are installing WordPress to a web host, they likely have an interface where you can create a database and password automatically without going through this back-end portal. But for those of you like me who like to work with the tools directly, you can do it this way as well. So we're going to create a database called wordpress-install. And in this case I use an underscore to separate the two words. And collation, we are going to go down here all the way to UTF-8 underscore bin, and I'm going to click create. And as you can see, it created the database. It's typically going to use your root password or whatever password you use when creating the database on your web host. You can see there are no tables, so we're in structure. SQL allows me to create a custom query. We don't need that in this case, but you can see a list of all the options here to work with the database directly. So next we're going to go to wordpress.org, and as you can see here in this neat little tidbit, WordPress now powers 30% of the web. We are in the middle of 2018 here. That's a pretty neat fact, and also helps explain why we at Ignition Deck love using WordPress. The one thing to note about this page at wordpress.org, that's wordpress.org, is that the page is always going to change depending on the current version of WordPress and their design standards and anything else they want to highlight or feature. There's generally a button at the bottom you can use to download, and there's always a button at the top. So we're going to go ahead and click the button at the top that says Download WordPress. It gives us a current version, which is 4.95, and it's going to default to a zip file. That zip file is almost 9 megabytes. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to download to your downloads folder on your computer. I've already copied this file to the location of where I'm going to install this new WordPress site. In this case, it's called Ignition Deck Install. It's a folder inside of my local web host. And we're just going to go ahead and unzip it. And as you can see, it's going to give us a WordPress folder that we can expand with 3 primary folders. Make sure that you have the same amount of folders and files. It's going to vary slightly depending on the date you install, but for the most part, you definitely need the admin, the content, and the includes folder. We're going to go ahead and delete the zip. We don't need that anymore. In this case, it's important to note as well that you can move all of these files into the parent folder. So that would maybe look like this. We're going to take this and we could drag these out into the parent folder and delete the WordPress folder, or you can leave them in the WordPress. We generally recommend, if you do leave them in the WordPress folder, that you might change it to something. In this case, we're going to change it to WP to keep it simple, but this is just a security precaution. It forces people to guess harder when trying to find out where your admin page is. Okay, now we're going to go to the install location where we've created that folder. In my case, again, it is Ignition Deck-install, and then we have the WordPress files located in a subfolder called WP. So I'm going to type that in. In this case, it's localhost / Ignition Deck-install /WP. I'm going to type that in, and just to be clear, you can see it's going to redirect to a setup menu, and in this case I'm going to choose English as my language. It's going to ask me for some basic information: my database name, my database username. Again, these are created when you create the database. In my case, they are preset based on my MAMP settings. It's usually, if you're on a local host, it's going to be some deviation of root, which you can change to maintain security on your local machine. Or if you're online, you're probably going to have been given a password that is more secure, or created your own. So we're going to need the database name. That was, again, WordPress_install, and the database username, database password, and the host. And the host is basically going to be given to you when you create the database. I know it's complicated, but usually you're going to be given a URL. In my case, it's going to be localhost. So here we are on the next step of the install screen. It's going to ask for our database name. In our case, again, we used WordPress_install. So I'm going to type that in here. It's going to ask for a username and a password. In this case, we're going to use root and root, which is what my default basic database uses. Localhost is where we're at now because we're on a local machine. And the prefix, just to show you how you can customize it, I'm going to change it to ID underscore. That is ID for Ignition Deck. And we're going to hit submit. And you can see from this screen that our credentials were correct and it was able to log into the database. If you see an error, that usually means that you typed in one of those variables wrong, such as the database name or username or password or the URL. So make sure that you write those down somewhere if you are prone to forget things like that, or maybe take a screenshot. Now we're going to click to run the installation. The site title, we're just going to call it WordPress-install. The username, in the past, WordPress required or created a username called admin. It's nice that you no longer need that. It allows you to be a little bit more secure. So I'm just going to call it Ignition Deck. And you can see this password that it creates for us. I'm going to go ahead and copy that so I don't forget it. My email is going to be hello@virtuousgiant.com. If you are using this for a test site, you want to check this box. It basically prevents Google and Bing and other search engines from putting your test website in their search results. And because you want to keep your site secure for testing purposes, especially if it's on a local host, you'd like to have that box checked so you're not getting random traffic from bots and maybe hackers. You're going to hit Install WordPress. And it's been installed. So we're going to go ahead and click the login button. And again, this was Ignition Deck was our username and our password that I typed in. I'm going to hit Remember Me. And voila, we are into WordPress. And as you can see in our dashboard here, we've got some comments or some links from around the globe. We have a test comment. You're going to go into posts. You have a test post that you can use to mess around with. You have a test page, sample page. And then you have a sample comment. So if we want to go back to the dashboard, it's going to basically tell us that we're using WordPress 4.95, running the 2017 theme, and that search engines are discouraged. Just so you're clear on the theme, if you click Appearance, it's going to take you to the list of themes that are installed with WordPress. You have 3, 2015, 2016, and 2017. Those are just named on the year that they were created. So that's it. I know this is relatively easy for some of you and more complicated for others, but the best way to get started and to learn is to give it a try and hack around a bit, make mistakes, and learn from them, and you'll be a pro in no time. Thanks a lot.